Yeah, yeah, yeah. Football Feast, this the Football Feast Extra podcast. Hey, Football Feast, Football Feast, Football Feast Extra podcast. Playing soccer, grab your cleats. Playing soccer, time to meet. Playing soccer, time to greet. They finna talk a lot, okay? Playing soccer, get the cleats. Playing soccer, let's get it. Playing soccer, let's go. Football podcast.
This is Andrew from the Football Feast Xtra podcast team, and this is a new show where we're going to be reviewing each game week individually in FPL. We're going to go through the top teams in the Football Feast Extra podcast Fantasy Football League. We're going to look at what players have performed the best in the game week, which teams are doing well, and what transfers we can maybe look to make going into the next game week. So I'm glad to have you with us, and let's take a look at the top performing teams over the weekend. So, as you can see here is the Football Feast Extra League. You can still join the league. There will be a link in the description if you wanted to get involved. But we're going to take a look at the top 5 teams here to see what kind of players they've got, what players have performed well, and any strategies that you guys can take from it to improve your own teams. So congratulations, by the way, to Mike Oakes, who has leapfrogged Blake Cowley to the top of the league after yesterday's bonus points were applied. So let's take a look at Mike Oakes' team here. 94 points, which is a very good score, very respectable, especially considering he's got Jurrien Timber in the team that didn't score anything. Very unlucky Jurrien Timber in that game. Let's have a look at who he's got then. Onana, solid pick, clean sheet for him on his first game of the season. I think a lot of managers probably had Onana in their team. Estepinian as well, got 3 bonus points after that 4-1 win against Luton. Shame they couldn't keep a clean sheet because he would have had even more points. So a good week for Estepinian owners. Reece James didn't have a greatest of games. Came off in the second half. And Liverpool and Chelsea obviously finished 1-1, so no clean sheet for Chelsea and Reece James there. I like that they've got James Maddison in here, that we didn't know what Tottenham was going to look like going into the season with Harry Kane moving on. But James Maddison did get the assist for the Christian Romero goal. So a nice 9-point haul for James Maddison. Bukayo Saka on 10 points. He obviously scored a cracking goal and played well for Arsenal. Luis Diaz as well on the score sheet for Liverpool. This, I think, is a really brave pick. It's paid off in game week 1. With Liverpool's front 3, we just don't know who's going to get the minutes. A lot of people picked Darwin Núñez as well, and obviously he was the one that was sacrificed and started on the bench this week. So it's a bit of a risky pick, but it came off. He got on the score sheet this week. And Bruno Fernandes, who had a pretty poor game, let's be honest, 3 points because United kept a clean sheet, which arguably they probably shouldn't have. It should have been a Wolves penalty. But that's a talking point for a different day. Of course, he's got Erling Haaland as his captain, 26 points, 2 goals on the first game of the season for Haaland. He's actually owned by 90% of FPL players, so chances are most people have got him, and most people have got him as captain. So we go. Alexander Isak, great pick. I wasn't 100% sure that he was going to be starting every game. I know that they sort of rotated between him and Wilson, but Wilson obviously also came on and scored a goal, and he could have had 2. So really good pick. Isak as well, and João Pedro scored a penalty for Brighton. Looks like he's going to be Brighton's penalty taker going into this season. Very cheap, I think 5.5 million. So a good option to have. And this team is the top team in our league after the first game week. Looking at the bench as well, it's got Diaby on the bench with 7 points. So it could have been an even greater lead if Diaby had been put in instead of Bruno Fernandes. So some points on the bench there. John Stones also took that knock. I think a lot of people have been caught out, including myself, having John Stones in their team. But on the bench, it was a good decision. So really, really good decision from this player. Let's take a look to see the similarities then between the team in second. Let's see if there's anyone in here maybe we can pick out that could be a good tip for game week 2. The obvious standout here is Bernd Leno. Had a very, very good performance. Didn't concede a goal. Faced a lot of shots. Got some bonus points. As you can see here. And 9 saves for Bernd Leno, giving him an additional 3 points, as well as getting the 3-point bonus. So a very, very good week for Bernd Leno owners. Luke Shaw, clean sheet, got a yellow card, solid 5 points. Kieran Trippier, unfortunately, Villa did score, so he only got 2 points, no assists for Kieran Trippier. But other than that, the team is very similar to the team in first place. Haaland obviously is the captain. This is a player that's picked Darwin Núñez. As I said earlier, it's a risk picking Darwin Núñez, but I think it is a risk of any of Liverpool's front three just because we don't know the kind of minutes that they're actually going to be getting. Let's look at third place. We will go to the top 5 just to see if there's any hidden gems in there that we can be looking at for the next game. Again, another João Pedro owner here. Estepinian is in most teams. Ederson, 6 points. Not a bad score. Buemo, a very interesting pick. Obviously playing up front for Brentford, but he's listed here as a midfielder. He's also their penalty taker for the season. So he is a very solid pick as well. 6.5 million, worth having in your teams. This is our first Mo Salah owner that we've come across at the top at the end of the league. Obviously scored that goal. Sorry, got the assist, but only 5 points for Salah this week. Let's head down to Ollie Newing, 87 points. Another good hole. Another Jurriën Timber owner, just like myself. Obviously 0 points for Timber. He got booked and then was substituted off just after half time. First Rodri owner. This is a very, very brave pick. Rodri, obviously a holding midfielder, not known for his goals, but seems to be adding them to his game. I'm not sure if it's worth the risk putting him in if you don't have him, but it's obviously paid off. He got a goal and an assist, Rodri, in that game, so that's a very, very good pick. Mitoma, first time we've seen a Mitoma owner as well. 5 points for Mitoma. Erling Haaland again as the captain with Alexander Isak. So a lot of Isak owners in this league, and that seems to have paid off in the first game of the season. And lastly, we are going to look at the team that's joint 4th, same amount of points, 87, just to see if there's any different players. We've got Onana, Saliba, Ollie Watkins, the first Watkins owner, 5 points. He did get an assist for the Aston Villa for the Derby goal. Ben Chilwell as well would look good for Chelsea, 7 points. No clean sheet for Chilwell, but did well going forward. Gabriel Martinelli also with an assist. So good start to the season for this player. So they are the teams that are performing best in our league. Let's take a look now at the players' performances overall. Let's see who has got the highest amount of points coming out of game week 1. Looking at this list, Rafael Varane tops the list, the only defender to score and keep a clean sheet in the opening game week. Of course, very controversially after Wolves were denied that penalty by VAR. Rodri in second place with 13 points, as I mentioned earlier, holding midfielder, clean sheet, goal and assist. And he's tied with Erling Haaland, who, as you can see, 90.5% of people own Erling Haaland. And most people captained him as well. So 13 points for Haaland, and Isak also on 13 points. So if you did have a Haaland-Isak double up, then you've had a pretty good game week. Bernd Leno on here as well. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, good game for United, clean sheet. He also got the assist for the Varane goal, 12 points for him. Disasi, the new Chelsea defender, scored for them. No clean sheet, but still 11 points. Good game for Harvey Barnes and Bukayo Saka, 11 and 10 points respectively. And then we start getting down into Wisa, March, Anderson, all on 9 points with Onana and Maddison. So these are the players that you may be looking at if you want to make a transfer, an early transfer after this first game week. But if you're anything like me and you're in a position that I'm in, you're probably looking at your defence, injuries to key defenders over the first game week. We saw injuries to Tyrone Mings, Jurian Timber, John Stones obviously had a knock. Ruben Diaz was ruled out of the City game with a knock. So maybe a few of you want to shuffle around your defence. Looking at the first week, Wan-Bissaka seems to be a solid option for Man United and Rafael Varane. So 2 Man United defenders there that could be an option for you into defence, as well as Disasi. Obviously scored that goal, looked very solid as well, kept Liverpool fairly quiet with the help of Colwill, who's also an option at the back. So let's look at the fixtures that are coming up in game week 2. You don't want to be putting in players that have then got tough fixtures. Ideally, you want an easy run in. Looking at game week 2, just going to bring that up on the screen. There we go. So here are the fixtures. This is game week 2. We've got Nottingham Forest versus Sheffield United is the Friday night game. Fulham Brentford, Liverpool Bournemouth. Liverpool Bournemouth is an interesting one. Liverpool at home. If you remember what happened last season when Liverpool played Bournemouth, it was an absolute slaughter. So it may worth be looking at Liverpool assets for this game. If you've got your Luis Diaz, you may be keeping Darwin Núñez for this game. Wolves versus Brighton. Brighton away from home. Look, I think Wolves look pretty good against Manchester United. Man United were poor though. It could be worth benching some Brighton players, or if you're confident that Brighton are going to get the win, to keep some of those in. Spurs versus Manchester United is one of the big games of the weekend. So you may want to bear that in mind when you're putting in Man United defenders. Maybe you want to wait until after the Spurs game to put some in. And then Manchester City versus Newcastle. That is going to be an absolute cracker. Obviously, everyone's going to keep in Erling Haaland, but if you're looking maybe at a Kanji or Ake, City defenders, it's whether you want to take the gamble of putting them in before the Newcastle game. You'd expect Manchester City to still probably beat everyone in the league, but if you don't have to make a transfer, it might be worth letting that roll over into game week 3. On Sunday, we've got Villa versus Everton and West Ham versus Chelsea. Aston Villa had a horrific start. If you've got Aston Villa assets, it may worth be holding on to them at home to Everton. I would expect them to get a quite positive result in that one. So yeah, maybe hold on. Don't pull the trigger on players like Watkins and Diaby just yet. Obviously, if you've got Tyrone Mings, it might be time to get rid, depending on how long he's out for. And then Monday Night Football is Crystal Palace versus Arsenal. I think this is going to be a tough game. It's always hard to go to Selhurst Park. Maybe look at how many Arsenal players you've got. It could be a game where you might want to bench Martinelli and keep Saka. Maybe double up on Liverpool midfielders if you've got Salah, Ian and Diaz. That could be an option. And I'm just going to take a quick look ahead into game week 3. If you're making substitutions and transfers, you don't just want to have one game week in mind. You want to be able to look across a number of game weeks to see how long you can have these assets performing well in your team. And as you see here, Friday Night Football in game week 3 is Chelsea at home to Luton. I think this is going to be a really good fixture for Chelsea. So it may be worth looking at Chelsea assets to see how many strikers or attackers you can get in your team. You've got 2 weeks to sort of double up on them. They've got West Ham away in game week 2, so it's still a favourable fixture for them. Bournemouth are at home to Spurs, Arsenal at home to Fulham. Picking out some games here. Man United at home to Nottingham Forest. That should be a good game for Man United, and maybe worth looking at your Man United assets for that. Sheffield United are hosting Manchester City. Again, Man City, you would expect to win that comfortably. Most people already have Haaland, but can we look at maybe Bernardo Silva? There's some suggestions there. Manchester City attackers, Alvarez maybe, that you could get into your team. And then the big one is Newcastle and Liverpool on that week. So some interesting fixtures coming up. An interesting start to this season's Fantasy League. Let's see who is able to catch the players at the top of our league. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back next week with another game week update live on Twitch as of next week, and recordings will still be posted on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and wherever else you get your football content.